In this video, I'm sharing my top tips and tricks for improving your amigurumi. Hi, I'm Nicole Chase and welcome to my channel. I design fun and colorful amigurumi crochet patterns that are great for any skill level. If you don't yet know how to crochet and you want to learn, I have a free course called Amigurumi for Beginners that I'll link in the description below. I often hear that amigurumi looks too difficult and assembly is just too hard. Anyone can learn to crochet, just like anyone can learn to master amigurumi. I put together my favorite amigurumi tips and tricks, and we'll go over them today. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to cover is choosing the right hook size. Most yarn labels will include a suggested hook size. Generally speaking, for amigurumi, you always want to go smaller than the hook size that's suggested on the yarn. The reason for this is to keep your stitches tighter. You don't want any of your stuffing to show through on your finished amigurumi. Most yarn labels will indicate what yarn weight that yarn is, and usually that's done with this little symbol here with a number on it. So this yarn is a size 4, also known as a medium weight yarn. Each yarn label will recommend a hook size based on the weight of the yarn. For example, this skein of Bravo worsted yarn suggests a 5.25 millimeter or I hook through a 6.5 millimeter or K hook. This is actually my go-to yarn for amigurumi, and I almost always use a 4 millimeter G hook, which is much smaller than the smallest here, which is a 5.25. In addition to using a smaller hook size, you'll also want to consider your tension. Tension refers to how tightly or loosely you hold your yarn as you're crocheting. And this is something that is going to vary from person to person. If you're someone who crochets fairly loosely, you might want to go with an even smaller hook size. Whereas if you're someone who crochets very tightly, you might not need as small of a hook size as someone else. This is something that only you can identify through trial and error. I have a few yarns that I use consistently, and I know that when I'm making amigurumi, I generally use the same hook size. I have a few yarns that I use pretty consistently, and I know that if I'm using these yarns, I have a specific hook size that I prefer when I'm making amigurumi. So if I'm following a pattern that suggests worsted weight yarn and perhaps a 4.5 millimeter crochet hook for amigurumi, I personally know that I would use a 4 millimeter crochet hook. This also makes it pretty easy if you want to switch up your yarn for a certain project. So if you wanted to make a pattern that was perhaps written for a worsted weight yarn and you wanted to use a plush yarn like this, like Parfait Chunky or a blanket yarn, something like that, if you have a designated hook size that you know works really well for amigurumi, it will be very easy for you to just switch up the yarn and know what hook size to use. If you're working with a new to you yarn, then I would suggest just going smaller than what's on the label and taking it from there. If your stitches are too loose, size down a bit more. If your stitches are too tight and you're finding it hard to work with, then size up a bit. I think it's really great to have a full set of crochet hooks on hand so that no matter the project, you know that you'll be able to figure out what hook size you need. My favorite hooks are these Clover Amore hooks. And another great budget-friendly alternative that I've tried are the We Crochet Bright crochet hooks. I will link these both in the description. One of the most important amigurumi tips for beginners is to use stitch markers. When you make amigurumi, you're generally working in continuous rounds. That means that you're not joining the end of each round with a slip stitch to the beginning. You just keep working round and round in a continuous spiral. This means that without counting every single stitch, it's nearly impossible to keep track of what row you're on. This leads me to stitch markers. You'll just place the stitch marker into the first stitch of every round. So if you're working around with a lot of repeats, say an increase and 3 single crochets, you'll continue that all the way around until you reach the beginning. Now, if you didn't have a stitch marker, you'd have to count and make sure that you're doing the correct number of repeats in order to have the total number of stitches that you need for that round. If you have a stitch marker, you can just do the repeat, do the repeat, do the repeat until you reach that stitch marker again. Then after you've reached the end of the round and you're back to that stitch marker, you just take it out, work the first stitch of your next round, and put the stitch marker back into that first stitch. Stitch markers are great for a variety of crochet projects, not just amigurumi, and they come in a variety of different types. So these are locking stitch markers, and they close like this so that they don't fall out of your project. I also really like these looping stitch markers that you slip in here and you just turn through the stitch, and then they also hold on tight and don't fall off. If you don't have stitch markers, you can use anything from safety pins, bobby pins. I've also seen other people use a scrap piece of yarn to loop through. There are tons of different options. It's just something to mark the first stitch of every round. The next tip that I have is learning the invisible decrease. So the invisible decrease is simply a decreasing stitch that is almost undetectable in comparison to your regular single crochet stitches. Now, by all means, you can continue working a standard decrease and your amigurumi projects will turn out just fine. However, the traditional decrease, the stitch just looks a little bigger than a regular single crochet stitch. So the invisible decrease is essentially a normal single crochet. It's just worked over the course of 2 stitches. I have a full tutorial on it and I'll link it in the description below. But essentially you will work a standard single crochet stitch, but instead of working it through 1 stitch, you will work it through the front loop of the first stitch and the front loop of the second stitch, and then work your single crochet like normal. Now, the result of that is those decreases can't be picked out because they look like single crochet stitches. And while that might not be super important for a project made of plush yarn where you can't really see a ton of the stitch definition, when you're working with a yarn that's not quite as fluffy, and especially with cotton yarn, you have a lot more stitch definition, which means you can see those stitches a lot more. And there are plenty of decreases up here in the neck as we're going from a fatter body to a thinner neck, and they're almost impossible to pick out. You may see decreases written a few different ways. In my patterns, I personally refer to them as a single crochet 2 together, abbreviated as SC2TOG. And in my stitch definitions at the beginning of the pattern, I suggest using the invisible decrease method and further explain that. Again, if you want to learn the invisible decrease stitch, I will link it in the description. Have you ever been crocheting and you switch from one color to the next, and you have a sort of noticeable step up where the one color changes to the next? This next of my crochet tips is the seamless color change, which allows you to discreetly change from one color to the next. And with this simple change and how you do the color change, it's almost impossible to detect. So here on this chicken, you can see all the way around, we have an almost completely straight line. The color change was done right here, and it's very hard to tell. You can check out my seamless color change tutorial, which I'll link in the description. The next tip that I have is to use a row counter. This one that I have just slips on your finger so that as you're crocheting, you could just quickly click the button to record your next row and you don't have to put your work down at all. So why is this important? Whenever you're first starting out crocheting, you might not be able to tell where one row ends and the next one begins. You might not be able to start at the start of your project and count up how many rows to double check where you're at. That's where the row counter becomes really handy. So personal preference, but I would always click the button as soon as I finish a round. So I would do round 1, click the button, and that would note that I have done round 1. Then I would do round 2, click the button, and that would indicate that I've done row 2, and so on. And that way, especially whenever you're doing something that has a lot of repeating rounds, so for example, if you have 10 rounds of doing single crochet only, that can get a bit monotonous and you might lose count of what row you're on. This will help keep you on track so that you don't have to keep going back and counting where you are. Now, using a row counter isn't specifically for amigurumi. This is great for any crochet project, especially if there are maybe a lot of repeating rounds or if you just have a lot of rows that you have to do. So it works well for blankets, tops, scarves, really anything. There are a ton of different row counters out there. I like the one that is like a ring that sits on your finger so that I don't have to stop at all what I'm doing It's just a very quick click. I don't have to put anything down from my hands. They also have different row counters that are like a poppet, and each row you just push down the little bobble. And if you don't have a row counter, you can also just use a notebook and keep little tally marks for every row that you do. But these are only a few bucks and you can get them pretty much anywhere. The next tip that I have is getting your stuffing just right. Don't overstuff your crochet pieces. And it can be hard to know how much stuffing to put in. Of course, you don't want to put too little stuffing and then your finished project is extra floppy, unless of course that's the look that you're going for. But at the same time, you don't want to overstuff. And the main reason for that is it will stretch your stitches. And then you'll see the stuffing poking through. Now, I'll admit that a lot of my first projects looked just like that. And this was a combination of not having the right hook size, being newer and not having consistent tension. And then, of course, adding too much stuffing just stretches those stitches even more. Now, while the proper hook size definitely helps with this issue, if you're stuffing too much polyfill into your project, that careful hook size choice isn't going to make much of a difference. So how do you make sure you have the right amount of stuffing? Whenever you buy polyfill stuffing, it comes in a big bag and it is jammed in there as much as possible. It's almost hard how tightly packed in it is. So that's why whenever you're stuffing, you'll have this big glob of stuffing, right? And yeah, this probably could just plop right into my amigurumi piece. But if you take the time to pull this stuffing apart, it's going to use less stuffing in your project. You're not going to have lumps and hard spots in your project, and it allows you to better control the amount of stuffing going in. So I'm going to tear apart my stuffing, and then I'm going to only fill just a bit at a time. While you're stuffing, make sure that you're spreading it out so that it covers the entire piece. So you want your stuffing to be even throughout the entire piece. I find it helpful to even roll the piece in my hand so that as I'm adding the stuffing, I can push against my hand and make sure that the entire piece is filled. Now, the whole time that you're adding your stuffing, you want to keep an eye on your stitches to make sure that they're not stretching out. Your piece should be firm, but not hard. So here I have Tanner the Triceratops, which is pretty well stuffed, and you can see he is very squishy and squeezable, and there are no lumps or hard spots in him. And he is pretty evenly stuffed throughout. If you're pulling right from your bag of polyfill and just stuffing it directly into your piece, you're going to end up putting big clumps next to big clumps next to big clumps. And that's just going to make your piece feel bumpy and not squishy. Now let's talk about assembly. I know this is one of the most difficult parts of amigurumi for a lot of people, me included. So this next tip is by far the most important. If you're sewing your pieces on and you're not happy with the placement, it wiggles around while you're sewing arms on crooked and they're not looking how you want them to, use pins to hold your pieces in place. I personally love using T-pins, and I actually have these for blocking and later decided to use them for holding pieces while I'm assembling, and it has been an absolute game changer for me. So again, the kind of pins that I use are T-pins. You can get these on Amazon or any place that sells any sort of like sewing supplies. The reason that I like T-pins so much is that the head of the T prevents the pin from slipping through any stitches. I've also recently started using what's called Ami sticks, and essentially all it is basically a thin knitting needle with usually some cute little toppers. And these are great for whenever you're sewing on something larger, like a head to a body. And they work the same way as pins. Basically, you put your piece where you want it, and then you pin it in place, or you put the Ami stick in place, and it holds that piece down so that while you're sewing, it's not wiggling around. So you just put your pins through to hold the piece down, go ahead and do your sewing, and then when you're finished, pull the pin out. This is also really helpful if you're not quite sure where you want something to be sewn. So you can pin your piece in place, decide if you like it, and if not, just move it around until you're happy with it. Then you can kind of get a visual of what it will look like before you actually do the commitment of sewing. And that completes my list of amigurumi tips and tricks. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have any of your favorite tips that weren't listed in this video, go ahead and leave me a comment below. Thanks for watching.